got fresh off of the MVP card on Netflix this past weekend. It wasn't, I'm not going to say it was the worst card, but I'm not going to say it was the best card. I'm not going to say anything to that nature, but I was going to say it was definitely a decent card. Definitely a decent one that had some really fun fights on there, so had some excitement in there, and it wasn't boring, and it really wasn't bad. It really, really, truly wasn't bad. I'm definitely a fight fan, so I was going to see it regardless of who was on it, and to see how Jake Paul has come a long way to building up his platform of MVP, most valuable promotions, and on the platform of Netflix too. It's a big, big, huge statement, and I'm sure it did some really good numbers. I'm sure it did really decent numbers, and I was excited to see the return of Nate Diaz, the bare knuckle king Mike Perry, the return of Francis Ngannou, and even the return of Gina Carano and Ronda Rousey. There was a lot of returns in this fight, and it was going to bring up a lot of curiosity on how these fights were going to take place. So let's talk about them right now, shall we? In the main event, you had Gina Carano taking on Ronda Rousey. Now, again, I made a previous video about Conor McGregor but he's been gone for quite some time, which is 5 years, and definitely check that video out. But now you got Ronda Rousey, who's been gone close to 10 years, and you got Gina Carano been gone for close to, I want to say, 17, 18 years. So these two coming back, I'm sure there was a lot on the line. There was a lot of heat on the line, I would say, for Ronda Rousey, but not against Gina Carano, more against the UFC. It felt like her beef was more with the UFC. It's speculated that this fight was brought to Dana White's attention, and Dana White did not want to have this fight take place. I'm not sure why. I mean, you got two really huge names within the MMA world, two MMA royalties, two women that actually helped bring the MMA's women's MMA to life. Without these two women, there probably would not be no women's MMA today. So yeah, it definitely struck me a little crazy. It was still a little crazy for Dana White to say no to this. I mean, I can understand why. He doesn't want to put any I guess would you say circus fights, but this was definitely not a circus fight. But anyways, how the fight took place, well, it pretty much went down how a lot of people thought it was going to go down. Ronda Rousey being the heavy grappler that she is, and Gina Carano, mostly known for her striking. Well, what ends up happening is Ronda Rousey comes forward, Gina Carano throws in the little leg kick. Ronda Rousey does her famous hip toss and goes in for the armbar and taps her within, I want to say, 30 seconds, give or take. So pretty much how a lot of people thought it was going to go down. I think Ronda Rousey has learned that after probably getting rid of some of her corner people, or some of the people in her life saying like, hey, stop with this whole boxing thing. You're not a great striker. You're a great grappler. You have some great arm bars and whatnot, but you're not a striker. So do not try to strike with strikers like she did with Holly Holm, like she did with Amanda Nunes. And I believe if she tried to do that with Gina Carano, who knows, maybe she could have got her, just due to the fact that Gina Carano's been gone for so long. But you didn't want to take that chance. Just do what you do best. Go to the ground. And that's what she did. So now with that fight done, they interviewed both girls, and Ronda Rousey had mentioned that she's done. She wanted to, have a family and whatnot. And I personally feel like, well, yeah, sure, of course, if that's something that you really want to do, definitely go do it. But I feel like she's done. I feel like after that went down, I feel like she wants to maybe do one more. Maybe a big blockbuster, maybe get one of them defeats back, get some revenge, get some get back. And I know Holly Holm is no longer with the UFC, and they could put on another big fight with Holly Holm and Ronda Rousey. And we all know that fight that took place, I want to say back in 2015, I believe that fight was, where Holly Holm head kicking Ronda Rousey, getting the KO and winning the women's championship. So yeah, I mean, could I see that fight taking place? Sure, definitely. Also, they interviewed Gina Carano, and Gina Carano felt like a little unsatisfied. She, of course, I feel like anybody would when you get tapped out that fast. I feel like she said she actually mentioned that she didn't get anything out. So with that being said, it does seem like she's going to want to have one more. And the best case scenario would be her to be matched up with a grappler, a grappler, striker. Maybe she could be matched up with Holly Holm. Maybe get Holly Holm, if Gina Carano's fine, maybe she could be booked up right away, and her and Holly Holm could throw down a little bit. And who knows? Maybe Holly Holm can get a little victory. If that, you know, no, nothing against Gina Carano, and maybe it could build up some. It could build up some that promotion. Give a little bit of a promotion regarding Holly Holm and Ronda Rousey rematch possible. So there's that. Of course, one fight I definitely would love to see. One fight I would love to have take place would be Ronda Rousey versus Cyborg. That was a fight that's been talked about for many, many years, especially when Ronda Rousey was champion, especially before Cyborg even came to the UFC. So that would be a great fight if Ronda Rousey would love to stick around a little longer. But who knows? Who knows? See what happens. In the co-main event, you got Mike Perry, the Bare Knuckle King, taking on the Stockton bad boy, Nate Diaz. Now, this fight did not go how I thought it was going to go. You know, Nate Diaz, unfortunately, he's been gone out of the game for a while as far as MMA goes. You know, he had some fights with Jake Paul and Jorge Masvidal in boxing, but the one Jorge Masvidal did go his way. The Jake Paul fight did not go his way. And in this fight, it just, even in the press conferences, even in the post-fight, the build-up to the fight, and even in the press conferences, it just feel like he just seemed too relaxed. Like, he didn't give me that whole old Nate Diaz vibe where he's going in there talking trash, becoming that bad boy, talking about how he's gonna, you know, he's flipping people off, how he's gonna beat the shit out of somebody. Yeah, it just didn't seem like it. It didn't really seem like that he really even wanted to do this or even wanted to be there. And even when he was the open workouts, he wasn't even working out. He was just kind of shadow boxing, walking around, smoking a little bit, and it's just like, yeah, no, I didn't get that vibe of like Nate Diaz, you know, the old Nate Diaz, the one that trash talked with Conor McGregor, the one that was going back and forth with even Jorge Masvidal in their build-up fights. You know, it's like it just really didn't feel like that this fight. Mike Perry, again, I would have loved to see a little more promoting from him, a little more trash talking. He didn't have to respect Nate Diaz too much. He could have like went after Nate Diaz a little bit, but it just seemed like these guys respect each other a lot. I mean, rightfully so. These guys are legends in the MMA world and in the boxing world and the bare knuckle world, so you got to give them props 100%. But still, it would have been nice to see these two kind of be at each other's throats a little bit more than they were. But there was a lot of respect there, a lot of mutual respect. And how the fight turned out, well, again, Nate Diaz just did not look like himself. He looked so slow. He looked sluggish. He just seemed like he was just trying to get a paycheck and really not get hurt, but he did get hurt. Mike Perry lit him up. You know, he pretty much was able to throw those elbows, throw those knees, connected quite a few times and busted it up. You know, it's not extremely difficult to scar up Nate Diaz. It's not extremely difficult to, you know, get him to bleed because he does have a lot of scar tissue underneath his skin and whatnot. And, on his forehead and whatnot, due to all the wars that he's been taking place in. And yeah, in that second round, he pretty much did a jumping knee, I want to say, that connected when Nate Diaz dropped him. And I believe if that fight was maybe about 20 seconds, 10 seconds longer, the fight would have got stopped. But it ended up getting stopped in the beginning of the third round. Well, Nate Diaz couldn't even come out of the corner. His face was just too cut up. It was just way too cut up. And Mike Perry ended up getting the victory, you know, so... In the post fight, Nate Diaz had mentioned that he said that he kind of forgot, or I believe he mentioned something like to that nature, that he kind of forgot how hard MMA training was. And I guess that makes sense because he's just been boxing for the past 4 years. And yeah, I guess boxing can actually make things more chill, more relaxing, because all you're really doing is working on, you know, your hands. You're not really grappling, you're not really wrestling, you're not really doing much else. So the fact that this is his first MMA fight, I want to say in 3-4 years, yeah, he just didn't feel it as much. And then I believe he also mentioned that he broke his pinky in the first round of the fight, so he was kind of thrown off by that. So, but he does say he still wants to fight, and he does say he wants a rematch with Mike Perry. So with that being said, Mike Perry had also expressed interest in a rematch with him too. I mean, who would not want to see that? Of course, you know, it's not like Nate Diaz is getting constantly beaten left and right. Now, if this fight does happen and it goes down the way it goes down just now, just like the first one, then yeah, I would say Nate Diaz needs to retire. But as far as retiring now, I'm not too sure yet. I'm really not too sure. But would I like to see these guys mix things up again? Sure. Because these guys are all violence. These guys are all action. 100%. Nate Diaz is always going to want to be in the fight, always constantly calling out anybody, anytime, anywhere. Mike Perry, forget it. He's my personal opinion. The BMF belongs to him. I don't think there's anybody alive that can throw down with that guy when it comes to bare knuckle. When it comes to bare knuckle, nobody's going to go head to head, toe to toe with that guy. My personal opinion. So, but yeah, there you have it. Mike Perry got that victory, and yeah, he's definitely could stick around into MVP Promotions, get that rematch, or he could go in there with Darren Till, because Darren Till actually got a contract with BKFC, and there was some little previous bad blood throughout the years with them too as well. So I won't mind seeing that either. I would not mind seeing that either. Also on the card, you had the return of Francis Ngannou taking up Philip Lin. Philip Lin, not necessarily known for being a how would you say, a really, not say famous fighter, but a popular fighter. You know, he has had a few fights. I believe, like I mentioned in the previous video, his biggest fight, I believe, was against Andrei Arlovski, and I think he was at 205 in the UFC. So this was his first fight at heavyweight, or maybe he's had a couple of them. I'm not sure. But Francis Ngannou, on the other hand, this is his first MMA fight since he won the PFL championship, former Bellator championship, in against Rene Ferreira. Renard, I can't remember exactly what the first name was, but yeah, definitely to that. He pretty much stopped that Ferreira in the first round, like he does most fights, and yeah, gained that championship. But that was quite some time ago, and in the process of that, he had 2 boxing fights against Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua, both not really going his way. So yeah, he's been out of the game for quite some time himself, just like the rest of the fighters that was on this card. A lot of them were kind of gone. A lot of them were not in their prime, I guess you should say. But Francis Ngannou definitely looked good. Got that fight stopped in the first round. You know, he did get a little bit in trouble, just a tad bit. Not, I want to say trouble, like he was going to get defeated, but he did get had some difficulties with Philip Lin in the fight, because Philip Lin was doing his best to do some wrestling, do some grappling, and you know, Francis Ngannou pretty much was able to stop all those takedowns and land those big power hands, those big power shots that he has, and stop them. Pretty much connected and knocked him out. So that's great for Francis Ngannou. Makes a statement again. I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, well, who was Philip Lin? I get it. No, but again, he was gone for a while. This is a good warm-up for him. Now, what's going to be next for him, I am not 100% sure. Like, it would be so nice to get that Jon Jones fight. God, it would be so nice. I would love for him to go against Jon Jones. But that, guys, we got to stop that. That fight's never taking place. You got Francis Ngannou, who's very prideful. He was not going to come to terms with Dana White. Dana White, extremely prideful himself, and he's not going to come to terms with Francis Ngannou. Those two guys just cannot stand each other. This is like the new era of Tito Ortiz versus Dana White. And these guys are just never, ever going to come to terms where they can make the biggest fights possible, because I believe Francis Ngannou is much needed in the UFC. Having him go against Alex Pereira at heavyweight, having him go against Tom Aspinall at heavyweight, and having him go against Jon Jones at heavyweight, we're talking blockbuster fights. But you know, I'm sure Francis has other plans against who though, and if he were to fight again on Netflix, I'm not sure as far as MMA goes. But as boxing goes, he expressed interest now against Jake Paul, even though Jake Paul had called him out previously. I think it was even before that Anthony Joshua fight. But, you know, Francis Ngannou had not wanted that, but who knows, maybe he's changing his mind a little bit. Of course, we all want to see him possibly go against Deontay Wilder in boxing, so who knows, maybe he does have options, but they're not like super big blockbuster options at this moment. So there you have it, guys. There was a few other fights on that card, nothing really big, nothing really major, but definitely check it out. It's on Netflix. It wasn't the greatest fight ever. It wasn't like the greatest card ever, but it definitely was not bad. It's definitely worth watching. I recommend it 100%. Check it out, guys. MVP Promotions, Netflix. You had the Gina Carano, Ronda Rousey's, Nate Diaz, Mike Perry's, Francis Ngannou, Philip Lin's. You had other fights on there. Definitely check it out, guys. Let me know what fight you like the most. Let me know what you think is next for each fighter. Let me know what you think is the future of MVP on Netflix. Thanks, guys. Like, subscribe, hit that notification button, and I'll see you guys in the next video.